President Joe Biden responded to pro-Palestinian protesters who interrupted his healthcare speech Tuesday, saying, "They have a point." Two protesters were escorted out of the venue in Raleigh, North Carolina, after they cut Biden off mid-remarks, shouting, "What about the healthcare in Gaza?" "Everybody deserves healthcare," Biden said as the protesters yelled that hospitals in Gaza were being bombed and alleged that he was complicit in genocide. He asked the audience to be patient with them. "They have a point," Biden said after the protesters were escorted out. "We need to get a lot more care into Gaza." Members of the audience cheered and gave him a standing ovation. Pro-Palestinian protesters were also gathered outside the event space, a relatively common occurrence for Biden in recent months. Biden has faced numerous anti-war protests at his events since the Israel-Hamas war began October 7, and especially as calls have grown for his administration to take stronger action on the civilian death toll in Gaza. After Biden was interrupted about a dozen times during a January abortion rights speech, his team worked to minimize disruptions by making his events smaller and withholding their precise locations longer than usual. Biden, who has been pressed by many in his party to address humanitarian needs more forcefully, has increased political pressure on Israel's government to allow more aid in Gaza, though he has not called for cutting off U.S. weapon sales to Israel. In his State of the Union address this month, Biden announced that he was directing the U.S. military to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the Gaza coast for aid delivery. Also this month, the U.S. began airdropping humanitarian aid into Gaza. At the same time, Biden and top allies have ramped up criticism of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government's approach to the war. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat New York, who is also the highest-ranking Jewish official in the U.S., recently called for new elections to replace Netanyahu. Biden later praised Schumer's speech, adding that he expressed a serious concern shared not only by him but by many Americans. Biden's speech in North Carolina centered on his administration's work to preserve and expand healthcare, hinging on the 14th anniversary of the Affordable Care Acts being signed into law. Biden, who was vice president when Congress passed the ACA, has made preserving access to healthcare a central part of his re-election bid. During his remarks, Biden pointed to former President Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the ACA, as well as Trump's bragging about being able to kill Roe v. Wade. Earlier Tuesday, Trump posted on Truth Social that he was not running to terminate the ACA, adding that he wanted to make the ACA much better, stronger, and far less expensive. However, Trump said just last year that he wanted to replace the ACA and that he was seriously looking at alternatives.